Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us again. Today, I'll be talking to Yogindra Vandana Prabhu, who is also a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and I've known him through his service in New Talavan community there. And so I'm sure he'll be talking some more about that. So welcome, Yogindra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna.
Jai Radhe Shyam, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai all of his disciples and grand disciples.
And
Thank you for the opportunity. Hare
You're
Krishna.
welcome. Maybe if we can go back, where did it all begin for you? Where were you born? Did you have any influences, say, from your family and your childhood that brought you later on to Krishna consciousness?
Hmm. Well, I took birth in New Orleans. My mother was a devout Catholic. That probably had certainly some influence, seeing people chant on rosary beads and sing in order of monks and priests. My father was Protestant, a World War II veteran, not a churchgoer, didn't particularly uh, care for the negativities or corruption that would pop up in government or in organized religion. So he was basically a hardworking, ethical, honest type of person, but certainly not a churchgoer. Whereas my mother was the opposite. She was a big churchgoer, uh, lover of God, but very sectarian, strictly, through Catholicism in her church. But again, that did give me the opportunity to see um, clergy in action and people calling on the names of God. Anyhow, I I was infected with uh, great desire for sense enjoyment, just enjoying my life as a fruited worker, and didn't have any ambition uh, to renounce it all and to devote my life to serving God. It was just the opposite. I thought God would, or I thought my clergy and church would take care of all the godly things the world needed, and my government, the United States of America, would serve and help the poor rest of the world, or the rest of the world in general. In the meantime, I would just go about, trying to find my happiness in life
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
And somehow or other, after high school and going to college and taking a philosophy class, I began to become a little bit, deeper in my thought. And I had a friend who introduced me to yoga and other cultures in the world. And, that got me to thinking, uh, about the dogma that I had accepted. And I began to, protest against, one life, heaven or hell doctrine. And I found more, to me, logic in the idea of reincarnation, whereas previously I just accepted church doctrine and thought that that was funny. Uh, so my mentality uh, changed, and I was wanting to understand Indian religious philosophy.
yes, yes.
Uh, I had gotten some books from one impersonalist guru, and I studied them and considered myself a follower, but it was very impersonal. When I finally met devotees, they would always sort of chastise me about those impersonal views, and I somewhat felt browbeaten rather than persuaded.
Yes.
Uh, but the ladies at the temple, especially the temple president's wife, was a little bit more gentle and
Hmm.
would listen, to my views, and then, introduce, her view or Prabhupada's view, Krishna's view. And that way I paid attention more and it had much more persuasion. Um,
So then you
but,
could
but
choose, couldn't you? She didn't browbeat you. She
yeah,
gave,
I wasn't browbeat. Something I could think
yeah,
about and accept the ideas
yeah,
on my own.
yeah, slowly accepting them. Yes, yeah, because
Yeah,
I started off with the impersonal perception. It's all I found at the library at the time, and
right.
would have been in the 70s, late 70s. And so then it took me a while when I found devotees to understand their personal aspect. And it takes a bit of time for you to move along your consciousness to try and embrace that.
Well, I had lost my interest in the personal aspect, and Krishna consciousness, specifically the Krishna book. It really sounded like Hindu mythology to me, and I didn't have much of an interest in it. Just listening to mythological stories as I perceived them, I had more of an interest in the philosophy and the teachings in Bhagavad Gita, and practicing yoga, learning to control my mind and senses, which I never really made a big attempt. Before hearing about yoga, I always just wanted to enjoy my mind and senses, but in the learning the idea of yoga to link with the supreme by controlling the mind and senses, that was what my interest was in attaining moksha, liberation,
Mhm.
becoming free from misery through the
Yes.
practice of yoga and meditation. So I put my emphasis on that. I liked that the devotees were chanting mantras. I liked that they were austere and getting up early and taking cold showers. I was young, and those things I threw myself into. I didn't I didn't care for going out and preaching because we
Mhm.
wasn't preaching my message or my impersonal guru's message.
Mhm.
We were preaching specifically, Krishna's message, Prabhupada's message, as the devotees at the New Orleans temple were communicating it. And I didn't. My heart wasn't completely into that, so I didn't find it authentic to go out and try to persuade others about something I wasn't completely persuaded about.
Mhm.
But still, they would, I don't know if you'd say force, or it certainly wasn't humble persuasion. It was more, a little bit more forceful. If you wanted to stay in the temple, this is what you had to do. I really liked the sadhana in the morning and the cleaning, and helping with the cooking. And I would even go out on Harinam, even though I had, unlike Gayatri Prabhu, I didn't have any musical background and nor any musical talent. But it was sort of a learning experience, and I could do that in public, even though it it was possible I would see someone I knew or a
Mhm.
relative, and they would certainly wonder about it. So that I could do, but to go out and distribute books and to convince people, I wasn't very good at. But I found people that were more easier to get along with. It was usually the little old ladies and African American uh, elderly ladies. They would always take a back to Godhead and give a
Yeah.
quarter.
Yeah.
So that way I was, a little bit successful. And occasionally, there was some young people or adults older than myself that would, had some interest and would take a book like that. So, but gradually, I became more of a devotee, more uh, accepting of Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the absolute truth being the supreme person. And then all those Krishna book stories started to
Mm.
not only sound authentic, but just as windows into the spiritual world. And I could appreciate how Krishna associated with his devotees and the devotees associated with Krishna. So, it took some time, but it all came to be. Uh, uh, I'm much better off than what I was. Uh,
Yes.
so I moved into the temple in 1971. I first saw devotees out in California in early 71. I saw them at some rock and roll festivals
Mhm.
at the Atlanta area in Louisiana, and uh, and then I started frequenting the Sunday feast. Devotees would ask me to spend the night, and that's where I started seeing what their routine was, and I took a liking to it, and gradually they asked me to move in, and so that's how I started uh, practicing Srila Prabhupada's sadhana practices. Um, I took first initiation in October of 1972. And so 72 was the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada at
Mhm.
the New Vrindavan Bhagavad Dharma discourses. And the thing I remember most is that there was a big open tent on a hill where all the devotees congregated, and there was a Vyasasan for Srila Prabhupada, and he came there and he was going to discourse, but we had Guru Puja first, and every devotee would go up and offer flowers to Srila Prabhupada. But unlike we commonly do, we would offer the flowers at his lotus feet, and then we would bow down and say pranams. But we did that not once or twice, but we did it twice. We did that three times. We would finish the first time and
Oh,
we would lift ourselves up and offer more flowers at Prabhupada's feet and bow down again, dandavats, and then get up and do the same thing again. We each did that three times. Must have been at least 100 people or more there.
it's
So
a,
we all did that, and that, I really remember how Prabhupada put an emphasis on serving the spiritual master. And his discourse that day may have been about that, but I don't remember a whole lot from it. I would have to go back and look at the transcripts. So that was the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada.
would you say when you first saw him, that dispelled all your impersonal feelings, because you were on the impersonal path first. So, what was it so do you think
Well,
having Prabhupada there, it confirmed it that you were definitely
I wouldn't say
on
that, but
Prabhupada?
what I would say is that the first picture I believe I saw of Srila Prabhupada was the number 37 Back to Godhead magazine with a Rasa Leela dance on it. And somehow or other, I made a connection, with Srila Prabhupada's picture and his writings. To me, he did seem like a genuine guru, a pure devotee, a self-realized soul. So despite my not having faith in Krishna is taught in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna book, I had some faith in Prabhupada, some attraction, which became like faith, and I could accept him as a genuine guru and somebody I aspired to be a disciple of, despite my impersonal leanings. Um, the first book I read was the Sri Upanishad, and I really took that to heart. Uh, 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 and as I mentioned previously, I gradually was able to again have some faith in a personal conception of God and just understand the inconceivable opulence of Him
Mhm.
and his Swayam Bhagavan features Sri Krishna himself. So I was, you know, by practicing Srila Prabhupada's teachings and hearing from him, he was able to convert me from a
Yeah.
sort of pseudo impersonalist to a, to a theist again, back to theism, which I had, you know, renounced when I had gotten away from Christianity.
Hmm. How did your mother feel about that? Was your mother still around then, and was she on supporting you in this path that you were taking?
Well, my mother was always a very supportive person, but she just thought it was a fad, just
Mhm.
a never odd thing that I had become involved in. Some odd association. Wasn't bad people, but you know, something other than Catholicism or mainstream religion. It wasn't something that she had much of a taste for or a appreciation for. So, she certainly had her doubts about it all. I had a few friends that also joined, and I remember one time she told me on the phone that my friend Vicodora's mother had called and asked if she could talk to me, about not persuading Vic, that was his English name, to stay, to at the temple, let him go home. And I just laughed and I said, he's probably more persuasive of me than I am of him. He's actually in many ways a much stronger devotee. I wasn't a real strong devotee, as I said. I had these impersonal leanings. I was somebody who was wanting to become, convinced, but I wasn't a convinced preacher or someone who could minister the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita in a very
Mhm.
persuasive
Yeah,
way.
yes,
So
I understand that. So this was 71 and 72. So you
71, 72, yeah.
remained in the temple. Which temple were you living in at that time?
It was the New Orleans temple.
New Orleans then, yeah. So you
Yeah.
stayed there for a number of years?
Yeah, the New Orleans temple was founded in January of 71. I moved in September of 71. They they bought the current building where they are now sometime like March of 72. And uh, I was there pretty permanently until 1985. In 1974, the New Orleans Temple also purchased New Talavan, our
Oh,
farm in Mississippi. But I was always back and forth between the two places. In 1985, I moved there permanently.
was that when you got married as well? And you
Yeah, I
moved.
got married legally in November uh, 84. And then we did a fire yoga on the 19th of January, 1985. And the next day, we moved out to the farm, me and my wife, where we were going to help take care of the new Guru Kula's little boy's ashram. And I would also help with the administration of the school. So, yeah, that was in 1985. Prior to that, um, I went from selling books and doing a little pajari work and cooking and cleaning. I was a brahmachari. Um, I went from that to selling spiritual sky incense or in assisting devotees who was selling it by helping them
Yes.
to drive around and sell the incense. And I sold it myself. Uh, so I guess that was my most prominent service while Srila Prabhupada was on the farm helping to fund the temple. Although I did my share of cooking and cleaning and all those basic things out at New Talavan. I even learned to milk cows and shovel cow dung and uh, like that. Uh, but mainly I was, involved in the kitchen processing milk, turning it into paneer, or churning it into butter and making ghee, like that, making yogurt, all those things that you would do with milk. So uh, in 1982, I was still doing incense, but then I would also help my friend Ranganath Prabhu do some preaching at the University of Louisiana, LSU, Louisiana State University. I would do that during the week and then go sell the Spiritual Sky incense on the weekend to provide money for New Taliban. In 1982, I married one disciple of Hridayananda Maharaj, nice lady from Tennessee. Uh, Gayatri may have known her. Her name it was Titiksu or Titiksa. And uh, about 9 months after we were married, she had a fatal automobile accident
Oh,
driving up from New Orleans to Southern Mississippi University to sell some paintings in the student union to help the temple um, financially. So, uh, uh, that was I was a little shocked.
mm,
I had thought I had insulated myself from that because my father had passed away when I was 14, and so I was sort of always on guard, always expecting that life would end, and not to be too
yes.
attached, to be prepared for death. But that kind of caught me by surprise. I didn't expect it. There's certainly all the details of all these stories that we really couldn't get into in an hour's length of time. But that took place, and then the temple president uh, asked me to please don't get married again. Or affiliated with any ladies for another year at least, so that the you know the Titch's family would feel more support, perhaps.
Mhm.
Um, um, uh, she had two brothers in the military, one sister that I still communicate with by sending Christmas cards and maybe occasionally a letter. Um, uh, so anyway, I did that, but then I met my wife in late '84 or mid '84, and we got legally married in November of '84, and then we had the fire yoga in January 1985 and moved out to New Taliban, where I have been since then.
Yes, yes. And you raised your family there. Well,
Yeah,
over the years, because I know, when did you become president of New Taliban?
I we had a very hard time in the beginning because of finances, and
Hmm.
there was so much land, and there was a very heavy mortgage.
Yes.
So all the devotees would try to collect something, especially from, we couldn't compete in the incense market anymore. And we found ourselves selling oil paintings, commercial
Oh, yes,
oil
yes,
paintings. But
yes.
I was with the Gurukula at the temple, and whoever wasn't involved in the Gurukula would go out and try to raise some funds. So I ended up being the temple treasurer, working under the temple president there. When the temple president resigned in '88, we formed the temple devotees formed a general management team, and myself and two other devotees became members of that. And we did that up until 1992. And then I went to Malaysia with my wife and first son, who was born in late '85. And then I had another son in 1990 and one in '91. So we took all three of them to Malaysia with us in something like mid '92, and we didn't come back until March of 1993, so about 9 months. And during that time, Jai Pataka Maharaj, who was the governing board commissioner, instituted a village council that the initiated devotees would elect every year, and the chairman of that council a would be like the temple president for that year.
Oh,
And the board of directors agreed to that, but they wanted me when I came back to be the temple treasurer. So when I came back, I did that. And by 1995, every year they would elect this board. By 1995, no one wanted to run anymore. There was just one bhakta and one lady devotee who wanted to run. And so the board of directors just made myself temple president. And we went back to that temple president, uh, treasurer, and secretary type of administration. So since from 1995 up until 2024, I served as the temple president there and a member of the legal board of directors, and generally the head pujari. And, of course, as temple president, oversaw the treasury. Uh, Generally, funds were slim, but by the grace of God, the devotees had paid the mortgages by 2001. And basically, we just had to form a congregation. And we were able to do that. I would give credit mainly to the cows because that made us different. Being a farm was different. Having cows was real different. No other places could have cows. So we had something we could market around the country and people would
mhm.
donate. We never did market it as greatly as New Vrindavan, but we were able to gain some donors. People had some interest in supporting the cows, and that way we were able to make ends meet, and uh, do uh, besides maintaining the deities and putting on festivals, we were able to maintain the cows and maintain the school up until 2008, which didn't close because of finances, but closed for lack of students.
Oh, okay.
Uh, and also maintain the properties and the buildings that we had, and just continue to try to propagate, minister Krishna consciousness to the general public. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you for that synopsis of New Talavan. I'm
You're
sure
welcome.
I'm sure the devotees there will be extremely interested of hearing all that. Um, so you brought us up quickly also to 2024 when you left as temple president, but I also know that in that time you've also started building a new temple with
Yeah,
Sri Rag and his family.
that's right.
So, how did that come about? Were there some early meetings that you had that said, "Oh, we need a new temple because this one is falling down" or something? And so, how did that come about?
Well, in the course of making master plans for the organization and properties, we always had a spot where we would put a new temple, but
Mhm.
it really wasn't on our radar because of finances. In the meantime, one day I'm driving to pick up my daughter from school, and Shirai called me from Denver and asked about coming here. And I told him, come and visit, check it out, see if you like it.
Mhm.
He did, he liked it, and he moved with his family down here. So we were real fortunate to get him. Um, uh, in the meantime, we did some campaigns to try to make a guest house. We have a mobile home as a guest house, which is nice, but we needed more facilities. So we were running this campaign to collect $300,000 to build a four-room guest house. And one Indian gentleman was visiting friends. that had moved from the Prabhupada village and bought one devotee's home who had become uh, a single lady there. All of her children had grown up and had moved away, and she was there alone. And she was going to move with her son, uh, not with her son, but to her son's house in Alachua. And so she sold these devotees her house, Jayagur, Sundra, and family. And so Dr. Samani would come and visit them. And in the course of doing that, he uh, found out that we were building a guest house and he wanted to contribute to it. So we went to the bank, and in the middle of transferring the money, he decided that he would prefer to build the new temple. Although we didn't advertise that or have an emphasis on it, he
Mhm.
saw it in our diagrams, and maybe one of the devotees had told him that, it'd be nice to build the temple also. But he decided to do that, and that's where it kicked off in, I believe, 2019, just like that, sort of spontaneously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, the pandemic, I believe that happened, what, in 2020, right?
Yes, that's right.
So we did started all this construction work right during the pandemic. From the beginning, having to draw up the plans, having to come up with the site spot, having to get approval from the county, and getting the site spot right, and then beginning the foundation and installing an antecedent. Then Sri Rag would knock it out one thing at a time, and you could see all of that
Mm.
documented on my Facebook page, Yogindra Vandana Das on Facebook. I have on running videos and pictures of that construction from the very beginning uh, to where it is now.
Yes, yes, I follow those all the time. And I'm friends with Sri Rag and his family from
Ah,
Dallas. And then
from Dallas, okay.
Mayapur, then Mayapur, because he moved off to Mayapur with his family. And
And you were there?
so I bought a flat in the same
Oh,
complex as him. He was just
okay.
downstairs of me. So we'd go
Oh,
to morning program together and all that. And then they
nice.
back to Denver, and then I lost contact with them then. But then they came on, as you said, to New Talavan. So I know them, and their son Seisha, he stayed at my house when he came back
Really?
from Mayapur, so that he could start work as an electrician in Dallas. He stayed with
Well,
me,
he's
and he
been a
got
big part of building this temple, that's for sure. He's like his dad's main worker, practically speaking. And
yeah.
and then their son-in-law also, Brahma. So Brahma and Sesha, the youngest son, Radhe Sham, is running
Yes, he
a
was
big
my son. Yeah,
a
yeah,
big he runs a big CNC carving machine that's doing all the carving work on the temple. So we've been just real lucky. Other devotees have helped. There's a new one helping now, came from Chicago, Mahabala. He's there helping. Um, Dr. Jason helped for, I guess, maybe as long as a year. He recently moved to Alachua. He had to earn more Lakshmi for his family, and he's a registered nurse. So he was helping us for a year, practically at minimum wage. But so he helped for a while, and maybe there was one or two others that also helped. But Sri Rag runs the show, and it wouldn't be possible, you know, without him. We could certainly build something smaller with just hiring contractors.
yes,
But because of him, we saved so much money, and we have something much stronger and durable and better.
yes, yes. I remember his house that he built in Dallas. he built it so well. He tried
Mm.
to do the absolute best he could. Wonderful. So, what is it, would you say, has kept you steady in Krishna consciousness over these years? Because not every Prabhupada disciple has reached the course. Some of them have left us and it's gone. And so what is it that you say has kept you grounded over these years?
I would say my sadhana practice, which I learned as a brahmachari. I was a brahmachari the whole time Prabhupada was on the planet up in from 71 to 82. That really helped, gave me, that determination to do that every morning and evening and to work for Krishna during the day. Uh, Gave me a lot of vairagya, spiritual strength. Then after Prabhupada left, I remember thinking that very evening I went for a japa walk and I was thinking now I would have to accept more responsibility. So I just felt having to accept more responsibility. I took whatever post I was given seriously and I did my best to execute it. And that those duties, that service, uh, I was doing it for Srila Prabhupada, and I believe that helped keep me steady. Maybe we were a little bit insulated being, way down south and, in a place where not a lot of people pass through it, certainly not New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles. Uh, but, certainly devotees do pass through and come to the temple, but it's, it's not a high, profile area. So
Mhm.
maybe that helped. We wasn't, always involved in a lot of, ISKCON politics. We were lucky that our Gurukula adventure, for the most part, went, nicely for the teachers and the students. Um, so, we didn't have something like that, tearing at the core of the uh, uh, temple devotees and creating so much grievance and heart pain. So we were lucky in that area. Certainly, we have the negative things that happen in life, but uh, it's important that we stay focused upon the positive.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be just going back home to Godhead. I mean, that's most important, but it's everything that leads up to that, comes to that. The Janmashtami, the Gurpurnim, taking care of the cows every day, the devotees that are trying to grow boga for Krishna, the devotees that are cooking it for Krishna, devotees that are taking care of the deities, devotees that are taking care of other devotees. Every little thing from even cutting the grass, which can be quite extensive out at New Talavan, to just cleaning the temple room. So I guess I was just lucky that I got so involved in the organization and uh, uh, always felt, support from the governing board commission and other devotees. Devotees always encouraged me. I didn't, I didn't, I didn't get dissuaded by devotees that would see so much, be so critical of this kind in various ways because of different unfortunate scandals. So that didn't it didn't drag me down. I didn't bump into it a lot, and nor did I go to it a lot on the internet.
Yeah.
although I'm familiar with it, especially being a temple president. I certainly heard about these things, and certainly I would you know spend a limited amount of time examining these different things. Everything from the poison theories to all of the child molestation cases and all these different things. So, um, but I would put my emphasis on maintaining a positive focus and trying to preach a pure ministry to help uh, not only myself and family and the people at the devotees at New Taliban, but uh, all of ISKCON and um, people in general to try to see the bigger picture and to
Mhm.
be an example of the change that try to some uh, better degree of purity so
Yes,
that we could accomplish what Prabhupada wanted.
yes, yes. And you seem to
So
have
that helped.
accomplished
That
that.
helped me.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's not something that's nice to talk about, but it is still part of the history of ISKCON and the history of Krishna consciousness, particularly in the West. So it's good to get everyone, people's perspective on it, just for the record. And but it seems that, as you said, you were down there in Mississippi and that, and you're way out there, right down there. Um, what do you think is how would you say, if you're looking towards the future, how do you see the future of ISKCON?
Gee, ISKCON has grown tremendously. It's certainly a fairly large religious institution in India. Around the world, it's a recognized, minority religion, backed by an international organization. Uh, I see it as only growing.
Hmm.
And despite the different naysayers, I do see it becoming, purer and reaching um, the or fulfilling the prophecy of Lord Chaitanya to help usher in a golden age. And I see all that happening. And unfortunately, we could, we know that the other part of the prophecy is that, gradually Lord Chaitanya's movement would decline before the full Kali Yuga would be implemented. And, this is a good window, 5,000 years of progress and then 5,000 years of decline. It's a 10,000-year window for people to easily go back home, back to Godhead. And, we're very lucky to be here at this stage of it and able to propagate it and offer everyone the opportunity. So I do see the world gradually, maybe real gradually becoming less materialistic and becoming more spiritual, where, people see that the purpose of life is not sense enjoyment, but the purpose of life is, pleasing God, pleasing Krishna, through their everyday activities and their meditation and worship and love. Um, and that's I see ISKCON as a major part of that. The ever Gaudiya Vaishnava uh, operations uh, certainly have their part in the scheme of all things, as well as all the religious institutions in the world. But I see Lord Chaitanya's movement is bringing people together by understanding themselves to be spiritual beings, um, and that the supreme being, the one supreme being is in the heart of all creatures. So every creature, every is a person, and every person is an eternal spiritual being. And the Paramatma, or the Supreme Atma, the Supreme Self, has a relationship with each and every single individual person. So I see, all religions is eventually recognizing that, and that all the religious people in the world, all the theists in the world, actually learn to appreciate one another and to cooperate with one another and take pleasure in one another's glorification of the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead. And so I see, the world evolving in the mode of goodness, and gradually the lower modes of nature taking a back seat and being there to simply help us to execute Varnashram Dharma, help us to execute the basic occupations in society, to um, feed the world and protect the world, and to um, um, uh, um, give all the basic structures and maintenance that is required in the world. And at the same time, everyone simply preparing to take the next step back home, back to Godhead. So, I believe ISKCON is going to be, a major part of all of that. And Srila Prabhupada is the founder, Acharya of ISKCON. I see that he will be, recognized as a great saintly person, you know, Shakyavesh avatar that appeared to help the world at a desperate time, and who was a main spoke in ushering in this whole golden age. And in his disciples, uh, uh, despite whatever difficulties have been there, uh, that they actually helped Prabhupada accomplish this mission by printing his books and distributing his books and maintaining his temples, and bringing Krishna consciousness to the rest of the world, and making the International Society for Krishna Consciousness uh, uh, just what Srila Prabhupada wanted it to be. So I see all of that happening, in a positive light, and I think the negativity will just go away like winter goes away. It serves its purpose to purify, the teachers, that we can't do wrong things and come out right, and uh, but that's not where we want to be, and that's not you know what we're going to be, and that's not what we're uh, propagating in life. I do see a completely positive scenario unfolding, and everybody's life becoming more and more joyful, and and Krishna becoming more and more pleased with the devotees.
That's a wonderful future that you have shared.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Certainly, that's a really good way to finish this conversation, I think, because
Okay.
nice and upbeat.
All
Unless
right.
there's anything else that you would like to add as we've been talking.
Well, if you need more clients, let me know, and I can talk to a few Prabhupada devotees that I know that are at New Talavan, and see if they could give an hour of their time.
Certainly. I will speak to you about that.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'm just going to stop our recording here, but you can stay on, and I just want to talk to you. So thank
Okay.
you again, Yogindra Vandana Prabhu, for this
Hare Krishna.
wonderful, inspiring reflection. Thank you.
You're
Hare
welcome.